Welcome back to Necromunda Hive Scum as we continue our exploration of the different factions of the game Necromunda. As we're going to tackle one of the more interesting gangs out there, I certainly did not expect what I found when I cracked into their lore. I'm talking, of course, about the gangs of House Van Saar, and how they play into the deadly, strange ecosystem that is Necromunda society, or just really hive life society. As a side note, if this is the first time you're joining me for a Necromunda, episode, check out the full playlist I'm building in the description below, and subscribe for future content like this. So, to give you a peek kind of behind the curtain, just me as a player, I'm just like you guys, I just, have a passing interest in just about every faction. I look at them and kind of gauge my response there. When I started covering the factions, I started with my favorite, which is Escher, and then on to my buddy's gang, Orlok. And the reason I'm doing Van Saar is that another good friend of mine, Jack, from the channel Rerolling Ones, chose them to be his gang. So I wanted to learn more about them and, do this video to get Jack excited to build and paint them. And yes, this whole thing is just a big long con to get more people to play Necromunda with me. But as I approached this faction, I had a lot of these preconceived notions about it, right? Oh, those are the technology guys. Those are the guys who are good at shooting. And while both of those things are true, there's a lot more going on here than at kind of first glance. Every one of the major houses in Necromunda contributes to the hive in some way, right? Escher was drugs and pharmaceuticals, Orlok was mining. Van Saar is the undisputed king of technological research and development on the planet. No other gang can match them in the quality and level of destruction of their weapons. And I focus on weapons because that's generally in the game what we interact with, but they can also put their efforts to designing, tools and commercial products. They fit into the upper crust of society just a bit, right? Because every rich guy wants and needs to have the best armed and the most reliable personal defense force on the market. Yes, they produce, las guns and pistols in countless numbers at the Munitorium factories that cover the planet, but if there's ever an uprising or a major rebellion, the revolutionaries will have those weapons too, right? They're so prolific within the hive because of all the manufacturing that you need something better. Something top of the line that's bigger, more killy, lest anyone get any ideas. And it's this kind of strange internal arms race between the upper crust and the workers that it allows Van Saar to really slip in. Now you might be thinking to yourself, like I did, if these guys are so, good at making things for the upper echelon of society, why are they a gang just like any other, right? Why are they these dirt people like all the other gangs, but they don't really quite fit into either world, right? They're not classy enough to be at the very top, but they're also a cut above in terms of their cleanliness and how they do things than the other gangs. The answer is fairly simple. They look bad, right? They don't have this air of nobility. They are gaunt and they're sickly looking, often losing large clumps of their hair and appear somewhat plagued. So all these rich people at the top are happy to buy their goods and let them have, this tiny bit of protection and power, but they aren't buddies. And so all of that explains how they fit into the hive structure. What they offer to the rich that cements their power base, but it raises two very important questions. How do they keep coming up with all of these sick weapon designs, and why do they appear so ill, so weak, so sickly? Well, the answers to those questions are actually linked together. In the universe of 40k, there exists an artifact or resource known as an STC. It's an acronym for Standard Template Construct. Back when humanity was at its absolute zenith, they created technological marvels that would appear like magic to us today. The knowledge, the blueprints, the data that made such wondrous creations possible was stored in these large mechanisms known as STCs. Think of it as a jump drive but on steroids, containing all the information and designs for all these cool, wondrous features. Those of the Adeptus Mechanicus, who's the Imperium, mechanical branch, covet these as relics of their machine god. They are of massive significance and unbelievable rarity, most being lost to the ravages of time. Well, at one point, a small gang in the bowels of Necromunda chanced upon an STC. Rather than bringing it before the authorities and the Mechanicus, they began to use it for themselves. This was the start of Van Saar. And they have taken this immensely important resource, kept it on the down low, and built a planet-wide empire off its secrets. From humble beginnings, this ace in the hole that they had made Van Saar a real contender within the hives. It's the source of their fantastic weapons, coupled with years of discipline in the arts of craftsmanship and creation, right? Because it gives you the blueprints, and then the self-discipline of learning how to manufacture top-of-the-line destructive weapons was their own. However, like everything else, there's a catch, and this is a big one. The STC that those early Van Saar discovered was damaged horribly. In fact, huge portions of it are missing. They've built themselves into this empire off the back of part of an STC. That's how much, resources and importance these things have. This means really two things for the gang. Number one, they're always on an eternal mission to find the other pieces, right? They pulled it out of the wreckage of some collapsed area, and so they know, okay, if this portion of the STC is here, and it happened, it landed here somehow during a collapse or something, there are other parts of it scattered around the hive. We have to keep finding it, right? We know it's here, but Necromunda is this deep and unforgiving maze, at least the hive cities are. But secondly, and more importantly, when the STC was found broken, it was blasting out intense radiation, more powerful than even the radioactive wastes of the planet's surface, its intensity cutting short the lives of many who use it. And this is the reason why they appear so sickly and ghoulish. It's radiation poisoning. Their hair falls out, the organs fail, muscles weaken, all of it. And this is the price that the Van Saar pay to be at the top. It's the self-harm they do so they don't have to live in the squalor like everybody else. The curse of the STC that they have has made them, but it also broke them. And their missions are more often than not focused on finding more of the standard template construct and finding some way to cure the radiation, to stop the curse of this device. Now, this gang is full of incredibly smart people, and the smartest have the most access to the STC, but we don't really interact with them on that level of their society, right? We get to play the gangs. Being smart is well and good, but not as useful on Necromunda as being dangerous, right? You have to take what you want by force, you have to assert yourself, and so even though these are all very intelligent people and great craftsmen, they need to have some extension of their power within the hive, and that's where we get the gangs, right? To protect their interests, to secure areas, guard caravans, and find pieces of the STC that we mentioned before. And honestly, I think that's the more interesting part, right? The gangs on the floor interacting with one another. They have a particular interest in Escher, which is the gals who are focused on pharmaceuticals and medications and things like that, whose mastery of those drugs may be the key to lifting their radiation curse. Possibly by engineering some sort of rad resistance or bioimmunity, something like that. But every gang has their ace in the hole, right? They've all got their super special thing, and the Eschers are not sharing. They're not exactly the friendly type to be able to give out this kind of, secret to the concoction. Now, shy of a real, actual solution to this problem, the Van Saar have taken to designing technology that at least helps their situation. These incredible looking bodysuits meant to slow the degradation of their cells and keep their vital organs functioning. It helps, but ultimately it's like putting a band-aid on a broken bone. But it is how we get such cool looking models on the tabletop. These suits work well enough, temporarily, and allow their gangers to tote their incredible firearms around the hive, which they use to devastating effect combined with their other tools. When you have money, you can get all kinds of tools like bioscanners, night vision goggles, gas masks, things like that. They are the technology and shooting faction, like I initially thought, but they pay for that tenfold by constant exposure to radiation and a terribly painful life. They are slow and physically weak as their bodies burn out. The technology that makes them thrive financially becoming the very crutch they need to survive in this hellscape. Now, why is Van Saar cool? I'm gonna be honest with you, I thought going into this I was going to really struggle, right? I was not super keen on this gang when I first looked at Necromunda. I think part of that was they look too clean to me. I like the dirty folks. I call them dirt people. All these people in the hive, they're just the worst of humanity, but magnified and put into crazy 80 rock cocaine benders. That's just what Necromunda is to me. But as I learn more about them, I really come to appreciate them and see how they fit into the swath of factions here. Their cleanliness is very well explained by the fact that they need these suits to be able to survive. And not only that, but if you have a compromised immune system from, say, radiation poisoning, you need to take care of yourself. And so they look cleaner than other gangs out of necessity. In addition to that, I love the idea that your greatest strength is your greatest weakness, right? The thing that makes you special and powerful and feared is killing you. It's slowly and painfully, and I like that theme that runs through this faction. And I don't know a whole lot of sports movies, but what comes to mind is athletes who really engage in heavy performance-enhancing drugs, right? In their mind, I need this to be the best. But in everyone else's mind, it's but you don't, just stop using it, right? And so you can get both perspectives of it's killing you, it is killing me, but it makes me the best. Both statements are true and tragic in their own right. Additionally, they always have these factions that are kind of radical departures from the aesthetics of others. So for example, if you're thinking 40k, think Tau, very clean sci-fi, and I think that's kind of what this represents here in Necromunda, where all the other gangs are very gritty and very real and grimy. These guys are very clean, and they have a kind of a classic sci-fi vibe to them. And lastly, I like the fact that this is more kind of playing on the game table, but it's an army with a singular focus. And I like armies that have one focus because it kind of helps direct your playstyle. You get to just experiment with different cool sci-fi weapons, and you kind of know what the plan is from the get-go. All of that makes for a super compelling faction, and I was actually more interested than I really thought. I thought it was going to be a struggle to read this, and the more I dove into it, I was like, this is really stinking cool. I hope when they come out with their faction-specific book, like the Knot Codex, what they're calling them, right, that Goliath's got, that they really dive more into the STC. I'd love to see a picture of a few of them, just to get a sense of what is this like? What kind of facilities do they have to be able to harbor this thing? I would love to know a bunch more about them, and I hope that book covers it. If you like this video and you know someone who's interested in Necromunda, go ahead and share it in the playlist down below. I would super appreciate it. That would mean the world to me. Thank you all so much for listening. Have yourselves a wonderful day, and happy wargaming.